Hey guys, so I do a lot of traveling, and one of the questions I frequently get asked is, where is your favorite place to visit? And for me, the answer is Monument Valley. And I think that surprises some people, but there's something truly special about this place. And part of that is that it's exactly what you expect. In many ways, it's the opposite of Niagara Falls. And if you've ever been to Niagara Falls, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have these beautiful falls completely surrounded by urban tourism, cities with hotels and fine dining and touristy little shops and Ferris wheels and family attractions like Ripley's and the whole nine yards. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great place to bring the whole family and find something fun to do. But sometimes you just want to get away from it all. Monument Valley might possibly be the most photographed place in America. And I don't know that, I'm just speculating. But you can see why John Ford chose this spot to film his westerns. It epitomizes the idea of journeying westward through some solitary, unknown land. Even people who don't know what this place is seem to recognize it when they see it. And part of that is because it's been in so many iconic movies and westerns throughout the days. I mean, Stagecoach, How the West Was Won, The Searchers. We recently watched The Searchers, and it's funny because, they're traveling supposedly hundreds of miles, but they never really leave Monument Valley throughout the course of the whole film. And it's still used in TV and movies, a very long list. Once Upon a Time in the West, Back to the Future Part 3, Wind Talkers, The New Lone Ranger, Thelma and Louise, Mission Impossible 2, Westworld, one of the recent Transformers movies, Forrest Gump. Yet despite that, it's still out in the middle of nowhere. If you were to head north on Highway 163, the nearest town is a half hour away. It's called Mexican Hat, population 30. That's just the type of area you're in. The Grand Canyon isn't that far off Interstate 40, and the crowds reflect that. Whereas this is a good 3 hours off of 40 through the Painted Desert in an area where you can literally drive for a half hour and not see another car. There are no restaurants in town, aside from what's at the lodging, which, by the way, is fantastic. So you definitely want to take advantage of that while you're here. Basically, there are only a couple things in Monument Valley, Utah. Goulding's Lodge, which is where I always stay, and there's a newer lodge as well. That's it. You step outside in the balcony of your room, and this is what you're looking at. You pull out of the parking lot, head down the road. It's just an unobstructed view of that deep red sand desert with massive red buttes and rock formations that tower 1,000 feet above the valley floor, like natural monuments. I mean, you can see why the local Navajo hold this to be a sacred place. In venturing through Monument Valley, you can't help but feel as if you too are part of some great journey westward. I remember our first trip out here, we had to stop the car to let wild horses cross the road. And granted, I realize they're not technically wild, it's just open range here. But speaking of horses, that's something else you can do as well, is horseback riding. And yes, you can technically go horseback riding just about anywhere. But there's something truly unique about riding off into the desert on horseback through such an iconic landscape. It's enough to make any adult feel like a child. So now let's talk about the lodge. Goulding's Lodge is nestled among red sandstone formations and have a variety of rooms to choose from, some of which include views of the valley. And for those that prefer camping, there's the campground as well. They also have a dining room that serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like I said before, there's no restaurants in town, so you'll want to take advantage of that. They even have their own grocery store. Goulding's Lodge does, so they have all the amenities set up here. There's a good-sized museum here on the property, which has artifacts of earlier eras and a ton of interesting history. There's a theater that every night of the week shows a different John Wayne movie that was shot here. And speaking of, here's John Wayne's cabin. This was used as his home in the film She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. And as you walk around the property, you'll come across all kinds of neat things to check out. including a trading post and also a gift shop with Native American handmade jewelry, pottery, rugs, and artwork. There's also a big emphasis here on education and respecting the local Navajo and their way of life. And they also give tours of Monument Valley. I haven't done that one personally just because I like to do my own thing at my own pace, but I know they have several options there as well. And you know, I visited a number of other places associated with Westerns. I've been to Old Tucson, which is where Columbia originally set up to film many of their old Westerns, and a lot of other things have been shot there as well. I've been to similar spots. I've been to Ridgeway, Colorado. I've been to the real Tombstone, you know, which is a little touristy now. But at the end of the day, Monument Valley has an entirely different feel. It's very distinctive, and I think my favorite part is the isolation. So anyway, guys, that's my favorite spot. Thank you for tuning in for this video. Don't forget to subscribe. I know it's a little off the beaten path, but definitely worth the visit.